Howdy guys, Bookie Laura here. Absolutely delighted with my reading that I have achieved in May, and I cannot wait to tell you about it. So this is my May wrap up. I want to say right from the get-go that I think this is the best reading month that I have ever had. Just mind-blowingly good. But to be honest, most of it has been done in the last few days, where I have read, in the last 4 days, I have read 3 books, which is something I've never achieved before. And it's quite simply just because I'm on holiday. Having a holiday from work, a bank holiday, and I went to my parents' house. So I didn't have to cook, I didn't have to clean, I just sat and read for a few days and I loved it. So this month in total I read 7 books and my page count was just over 3,400, which is 500 more than my second best month so far this year, which is just mind-blowing. So chuffed to bits. So the first book that I read this month was Liz Braswell's A Whole New World, which is the twisted tale, the Disney story where they've twisted it. So it basically tells the story of what would happen if Aladdin hadn't found the lamp. I was a little bit disappointed with this to start with because the beginning of the book literally lifts huge sections or even lines from the film, and it just felt like I was reading a retelling of the film. However, that's only the first sort of section of the book, and then it takes a much darker turn where it goes into the twisted tale. And I actually quite enjoyed that. I enjoyed finding out just an alternative ending. It was much darker than I expected. I kind of had in my head that it would still be a kid's book. It is not. Some bits were very, very violent. After that, I read We Were Liars by E. Lockhart. I'd heard good things about this. I'd heard that there was a twist in the tale, which I probably figured out at the point that you were supposed to figure it out, because I'm good old naive and gullible me. Generally, I found it just to be an easy, happy read. The twist was quite cool, but nothing terribly overexciting. The storyline is super intriguing. That keeps you going even when the going gets tough, because it reads a little bit like poetry at times, and I'm not a massive fan of poetry, so I wasn't overly enthused with that. And P.S. the main character is proper annoying. Proper. After that, I decided to get a bit more serious, and I read The Lost City of Zed by David Grann. I'd heard amazing things about this, and I'd seen a wonderful copy of it in a bookshop with a different cover, which looked really interesting. Much more appealing than this, so I finally decided to give it a go, and I must admit I wasn't overly enamoured with it. I have been trying to increase the level of non-fiction that I've read, so this was part of that journey, and I'm not loving the non-fiction so far, to be honest. I really enjoyed finding out about the Amazon. The bits where he was on a journey through the Amazon I loved, but there just wasn't enough of that to keep me going. Found it a bit intense at times. There was an awful lot of history and names and dates that just weren't that interesting to me, and I found for a lot of the book I was just thinking, come on, get to the blooming Amazon, because I just want to read about that. And the bits where it told you about the Amazon I loved, but there was far too much faffing about in between for my liking. And at this point in the month I decided to read a book on my Kindle. In my TBR I'd ummed and ahed about whether I would continue with the Lunar Chronicles or the Raven Cycle, and you guys were all like, oh, you've got to read Cress. So I did. Wow, did I love this. Cress is definitely the best book so far in the Lunar Chronicles. I really like all the separate characters and plot lines are coming together into one massive epic drama, and I love it. But this book felt much more action-packed than the previous books, and it really feels like it's building up to a grand finale, which is very cool. It was a lot longer than the others, but didn't feel like it was dragging at all. I felt that it just had a lot more going on in it. I suppose it's the first time in the Lunar Chronicles that you've kind of felt it all really coming together, not just standalone characters, standalone books. They're all coming together and building, like I say, to a grand finale, which I'm very excited about reading. After that, I was really lucky enough to receive another ARC from Hodder and Stoughton, and I decided to give that a go so that I could get the review done of it, and that was Boys Don't Cry by Tim Grayburn. I am going to do a proper review of this book as I received a free copy of it. In exchange for that, I probably should. But basically, it's a book that talks about depression, and I think that books about mental illness are so important, and it needs to happen more often. People need to talk about mental health, and this does such a good job of doing it. As well as discussing depression in general, it also speaks specifically about the impact that it has on men. As I say, we'll do a proper review, but oh my god, second non-fiction book of the month. I read Boys Don't Cry in a couple of days, and I thought, oh, I'll read Monsters by Emerald Fennell. This is definitely my favourite book that I've read this month. I read this in under 24 hours. I couldn't put it down. Loved it, loved it, loved it. It's got a really intriguing and creepy start. Everything about this book is creepy and unpleasant and just gross, but it's so exciting and so intriguing that you just can't stop reading it. Definitely recommend that. And then the final book which I read this month was another library book and another non-fiction. That's 3, baby. The Unmumsy Mum by Sarah Turner. Yes, Sarah Turner. This is a cracking book. I talked briefly about it in my library haul when I got it, but it's basically, it's a real book about being a parent. It's not about pretty things and Pinteresting beautiful meals that you've made in the shape of a face or beautiful artwork that you've created. It's about the poo and the sick and all the other grossness and hard work and awfulness that is parenting, but it's still pretty great. I think that I love this because she tells a real realistic side of parenting, you know, that it's not all sparkles and rainbows. It's really hard work and some days you don't want to do it anymore. But she tells it in quite a light-hearted way. I laughed out loud reading this, which very rarely happens to me, and I connected with everything that she said. It talks about the negative sides of parenting and the state you can get in, and at the end there were some links to resources on postnatal depression, and I just thought that was an amazing thing to do, to address how horrific and lonely parenting can be and how you feel like the only person in the world is finding it hard. So I really rate this book. Loved it. So this is my epic wrap-up for May. I am chuffed to bits with this. Never in a million years did I think that I'd be sitting here at the end of a month going, look, I read 7 books. 7! I'm not even going to try to recreate this in another month. I'm going to accept this as the pinnacle of my reading life, and I quit. I will no longer read any books. I probably will. If you've read any of them, let me know. Let me know what you thought, if you agree, disagree, etc, etc. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.